All right, everybody. Thank you once again for being here with us at the NONA Sports Cast, and today is going to be awesome. This is a conversation that I've been trying to hold it for a long time, and I'm not gonna blame just
That's
his
my fault.
schedule. I'm not gonna blame just his schedule, but my schedule as well until we can get off season for them and like towards the end of the season for here for Nona Soccer. But I am here today with a UCF head coach, Mr. Scott Calabrese. Thank
Thank
you so much for being here, Scott. And I think
Fabio, thank you.
we've been waiting for this moment. I'm excited. I know that our community is going to be very excited when we start releasing the shorts and releasing the whole video. But thanks for being here, and I hope we have a good conversation here in the next 7.5 hours. So.
You need more water.
So Scott, tell us a little bit about you, who you are. How did you end up in this crazy Orlando? If you came from Mickey Mouse or whatever you came. So I think it would be good for us to understand who you are as a person before
Yeah.
you get into this to the beautiful world of soccer.
Yeah. So, obviously, now I've been the UCF coach here. I think this is going on 8 seasons. Came up through the game, a lot of different stops. If we just go back to the beginning, born in 1972, soccer, during that period of time, it was kind of this sport that wasn't a mainstream sport, and got into it really young. It was just growing in this country. And it was, for some reason, something clicked with me that happens with so many people. And I really started to get interested in it and played it my whole life. And I'm sure we'll talk about club soccer back then was a little bit different. It was your town team. It was very, it was very much a community-based, like, I'm from Newtown, Connecticut, and it was that community. We had a team, dad coaches, guys that were not really understanding the game at a good level, but there wasn't a whole lot of exposure to it either. And I just kept going and playing. I fell in love with the game. Played in college, played at a place called Bryant College. It was Division II at the time, and since gone and become a Division I institution. Played 4 years there, and had some life-changing moments through college where I decided, okay, I want to try to continue to play after college. And I did in a fledgling, it was called the USISL. There was no MLS at the time. It was a league. There were really 2 types of leagues at the time. There was a Portuguese league up in New England. It was pretty much all international players with a few American players, and then the USISL had started up, and I started playing in that league. And back then, you were playing for a couple $100, gas money. Not you weren't able to make any sort of living. That was like this extra thing that you were doing that you loved, and then that led me to coaching. And then, of course, that path has brought me to where I am today. As a person, as a human, I've got an amazing family here in Orlando. My kids, I've got 3 kids. They all play soccer. They're all in club soccer. So that gives me a whole different perspective as a dad who's a coach who now gets to see club soccer. As it's evolved, and to be in that world, which I haven't been. So absolutely love Orlando, love working at UCF, and it's exciting to be here and to be at UCF right now.
Awesome. And I think the biggest conversation is that I normally have with young coaches and people that's working the soccer side. It's like when we were talking off camera, and I thought that was pretty interesting on how you said it. But when did you make that click from I'm no longer a player. Coaching is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And how was that? Because that for all of us that played soccer, all of us old people, right, that played soccer.
Yeah.
What can you tell about that transition, and how did you end up making that decision?
Great question. I can remember it. I was almost kind of forced into coaching in a way.
Really?
And I think I was trying to play, right? I was pursuing this professional dream that I had to try to continue. And that wasn't enough to pay the bills. And then I started to get opportunities in the coaching world. And as it turned out, at first, I didn't do a great job. I worked a lot of summer camps. I worked for #1 goalkeeper camps. I was a goalkeeper. And to continue.
Now you definitely have a spot in our team on Thursday nights.
I don't play in goal anymore.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's dangerous now at 53. But I can remember I used to paint a good picture for the coaches, right? So when I was quite young, I would demonstrate a lot. And the very first time that the lead coach turned to me and says, "You're going to run the next session." And these were big sessions, these goalkeeper camps. So I'd have 60, 70 kids that I'm trying to teach a topic to. And I'd never done it before. And I bombed. I was so bad. I didn't know what to do. I tried to plan it out, but I had absolutely no idea how to execute on it. And I felt so bad at the end of it because it flopped. But then I started to really, I was in the presence of really high-level coaches. And a lot of these coaches were, quite a bit older than me. They played professionally indoor, because that was actually the league back when I was coming up. That league was the league that paid a lot of money. That's where the best players gravitated towards, and they had the summers off. So then I started working with guys like Joe Macknick. He was actually the goalkeeper coach for the U.S. national team for one of their kind of stints, and a few others who were fantastic and started to understand it better. And which just goes to show you it's a skill. Coaching is a skill. And then over time, started to really gravitate towards it, started to actually really enjoy helping. It started with me making goalkeepers better. And I felt like I could pick out details that were important, learned a method, right? And I think that's part of it. You have to have an understanding of the method to help people get better, understood the principles of goalkeeping well, and then I was able to execute on that and started to make goalkeepers better, and whether it be in a camp setting or an individual setting, and that got noticed by others. And the transition is difficult. My first transition as a coach from player to coach in a team setting was actually with a guy that I played with. And I don't think I was very good at it again. I don't know that I understood that I needed to form a really different relationship with him. Because we were competing against each other. We were playing on the same team, both goalkeepers. We were competing against each other. And then what I realized over time is you've got to kind of let the walls down. You've got to really connect with the person that you're coaching. They've got to know that you're trying to make them better. And I think once I figured that part out, I was then able to really get goalkeepers to buy in and believe and make them better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that transition is my youngest is a goalkeeper, and we started the first goalkeeper academy and youth clubs here in Central Florida, and we became like a little, we like to say a factory of goalkeepers, like a bunch of the Orlando City goalkeepers today, even their coaches are coming from here, and hopefully soon we'll be making at that level, be coming over to the college side. And then that's one thing that I used to tell young goalkeeper coaches is like, you're not competing with the kids.
Yeah.
because they're still active. They're 25, 26 years old. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to show you how.
That's right.
In their mind, so it's nice that you said that. I think the coaches on the field also go through that a little bit. Like, I can still do this. I'm like, but I agree 100% with you. I've had those conversations before, and that's interesting. So from that, all of that background that you had, and then you transitioning from goalkeeper and stuff, and then to the head coach today that you are.
Yeah.
How did you develop? What is your style? What is your if you have an elevator pitch and I'm the and I am the president of Real Madrid, and I say, all right, Scott, tell me who you are in 30 seconds and what do you look for in a team environment, and what can you tell me of how you evolved to this point in your career?
Yeah, no, that's wow. Okay, where to start?
I'm a professional interviewer. You don't know that.
No, really good question. I think really when I look at our team now and more the coach that I am now, I think there's two sides. I think this has changed over time, right? I think there's this idea back when I was growing up that the coach is this guy who's barking out orders and demanding things from people and is like, I don't know what the word is, but like, not that you shouldn't be demanding, because you have to be demanding. But I would say the starting point is the relationships with your players, to be able to connect with them, to be able to understand them, that they know that you care about them and that you're there to make them better. And I think when you approach it that way, and they're the center of their own development, right? And I think that's the important thing to understand, is that we're athlete-centered. We are not coach-centered. We are athlete-centered. We start with the athlete, and then what we do is we put an environment around the athlete. And that environment is really open. We build great relationships with our athletes. They're honest. That doesn't mean that we just tell them all the things that they want to hear. It's quite the opposite, but we build an incredible amount of trust through how we interact with them. The environment has very high standards. We communicate everything on. We try to communicate at the highest level possible around those standards. We have clear values. For us, care is at the center of what we do, and love is the greatest form of care, they say. And we want every single player to care about their environment and everything they're doing, whether it's the academic side, whether it's the football side, whether it's what they're doing off the pitch that affects what they're doing on the pitch. Connection's big, and not just connection coach to player, but the connection within the team. And we make sure that everyone understands one of the values that I think when you start talking about teams, you have to talk about the feeling of belonging. And we have a culture within our team where our players and the new players that come, if you talk to the new players that come into our environment 3 months, 6 months, a year later, the very first thing that they feel is like they feel like they are absolutely welcome there, that they belong, that they connect with our group, and our group understands this is a central part of our culture. We have to have courage in our environment because we're trying to achieve things that are really difficult. There's difficult moments. There's games that don't go our way. There's moments within games that don't go our way. And these are players that are literally pursuing their dreams, whether that dream is to win in that moment for UCF, or a lot of them, their dream is also to continue their career afterwards, right? There's fear that comes around that, not being able to do it. And in our environment, courage is important. It's not the absence of fear. It's like, no, we go despite it. And then the bottom line, I think, the one that's really resonates with me is commitment. And so these are the values that we talk about at UCF. And commitment is, every day I wake up, I feel a little different about how do I want to go into the office? Do I want to show up at a certain level? And your motivation, they say, goes up and down. Absolutely normal. The feelings around what you're doing. But commitment is, I show up and I deliver at the highest level I can deliver every single day, no matter how I feel. And those are the values that we, on a daily basis, we remind the players of, they remind each other of, and then you have to live those values, right? You can't just make a T-shirt that says care, commitment, courage, connection, right? It doesn't work. Like, you have to live those values every single day, and then that's your culture. And when you don't live those values, or you maybe slip in a moment, it has to be reminded, right? Whether it's, because it's not just me as the head coach or the staff, it's the players have to do it, because we've got them 2 hours plus a day. There's a whole 22 other hours that they have to live those values. And so when we talk about UCF, that's the culture that we're trying to create.
That's awesome. I love that. And when you talk about the commitment and courage, I think developing as a young man, it's one of those things like that you try to impose, like that you try to implement in your family as a father, right? Like, it's
100%.
like we try, but now I think it's where off script a little bit. When you talk about these 4 values, right?
Yeah.
It's care, connection, commitment, and courage.
Yep.
So you have these 4 values, and how did you see that implementation, Scott, over the years with the different kids? Because kids are not the same anymore. When they come to college today, it's not the same kids that you got 5 years ago,
100%.
and it's not the same kids you got 10 years ago. So how is it for you to connect with this new generation, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all phone, it's all electronic, digital.
100%.
How is it? Like, tell us that, like, the challenges and the pros as well, because there's a lot of things that they're so much faster in learning. I read something about college athletes and college students, that they're decreasing the amount of alcohol consumption.
I would say that is probably true.
And it's unbelievable. Like, the alcohol and cigarettes, tobacco consumption has dropped by a huge amount with the new generation.
Yeah.
And back when
100%.
we were there, like, we found an excuse, like any type of thing to have a drink, you know. And it's like, so
100%.
so those are the pros. But there's a lot of negative stuff that we were communicating, talking, and now it's all via text messages and stuff. So how's that for you with the new generation? What is it? Generation X? That's like, let's not go there. But
sure.
but they change everything. But how is it for you as how do you see that change?
I think I was, from a personality perspective, it probably suited me better to coach in this generation than in the prior generations. And so what I think is the relationship is where it starts, and that you build trust. So this is the coach-player relationship. What I find that's different is, whereas in the past there was this distance between you and the player, that was this healthy distance. The relationship was kept very professional. There wasn't a lot of, like, personal connection. It was more, this is your job, this is what you need to do. I think that's changed, and I think if you really want, I think the player now wants a different relationship. I think they want a real relationship. They want an authentic relationship. They want to know you. They want to know who your family is. They want you to know that about them. They want to know that they're cared for, and you have to demonstrate it. And then they'll run through a brick wall if they feel that. But it requires much more effort on our part, whereas you didn't have to have consistent meetings every week with players to communicate. Now you do. If you want them to perform, I can tell you, anytime there's a performance issue with a player, there's something behind it. And most every time when you bring that player in, you say, okay, what's going on? Talk to me. And you have that conversation. Whether you solve their problem or not, whether it's something that they're willing to share with you, they know then, okay, this is a person that cares about me. And you see that okay, there's a change. And I've seen that multiple times. And if you're paying attention in your environment, you'll notice when somebody's off, right? And then I'll take it to the other side, which is I think also you have to create conditions now, which, to your point around cell phones, and cell phones are a barrier for connection in a locker room, right? So now you go into a UCF environment or a professional environment. This is the first time you have a locker room environment. And locker room environments are incredible for connection. Guys get in there, the music goes on, people are talking, they're talking about all sorts of different stuff. We have the dorms as well, right? So our guys all live together. So there's these conditions that we create that lead to connection, right? One of the conditions that we have, which I promise you our guys do not like but benefit from, is, all right, when you walk in the building before training, the cell phones have to go away. They do not like that because it's an addictive substance, essentially, technology, social media. So when we do that, though, two things happen. A, they become less distracted, right? Because I think that's one of the things that technology does is it really impacts your ability to focus and concentrate, so attention, which is important to producing at a high level in training or games. So we remove distraction. And then now I'm sitting there, you're in the locker next to me, I'm not on my phone anymore.
I have to talk to you.
We're going to talk. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about something, right? So I think when we do those things, at dinner, right, we're out on the road, and then, we're putting away the phones, we're eating dinner. There was a group that a couple years ago, when we were playing at a top level, we were one of the top teams in the country, there was board games. So we'd be on the road, guys would break out board games, they wouldn't be on their phones, and they'd play board games, and you could imagine, if you've been around it, I've been around it, 7, 8 guys all playing board games, and the banter back and forth around things and the connection that's built in those moments, that moves onto the field at some point, right? Because if you and I have a connection and you make a mistake, actually, let's make it me. I make a mistake, right? I don't pass you the ball or I don't track back. You'll do whatever it takes to help me in that moment, right? And you might yell at me afterwards, but you've got my back. And I think that's really important. And we have to actually manufacture those conditions by saying, put the phones away.
Yeah, it's a huge transition for us that we've been seeing we saw everything, right? So they say we're the toughest generation of all because we went from the dial-up phones where you had to go, and then
I can remember
for the quarters on the pay phone, like the
That's
pagers, right. And now we're seeing how fast. Like the other day, I was talking to these guys, and I mentioned something like, "No, I've never heard of that." I was like, I don't remember what it was.
The clicker on the exams.
Oh yeah, at UCF. When I came to UCF, it was revolutionary, and because they gave me a remote control.
Yeah.
So your test goes up on the thing, and you had to click A, and then it records through your clicker. That was me at UCF.
I never even had that.
Exactly. So when I came to UCF, it's like, oh
tablets.
my God. Yeah, there we go. So I'm like, this is the hardest thing that I've ever done because now I don't have to write it. I can't look. I don't know what the
I like paper books.
Me too. I can't read on an iPad or a Kindle or. So
I'm with you.
Let's
better.
move on, Scott.
Technology is not always better.
So
it's different.
So then I took that, and then I was talking to Edgar, and he's like, "What? I never had a clicker." To me, that was like the improvement on technology, and they don't even know what that is anymore. So those things have
it's like an 8-track tape.
Yes. So with all that said, Scott, I think that's the question that you probably hear the most, and. If you tell me today, and all of these kids watching you, and we have about 1,000 kids here in NONA, and more and more and more, UCF becomes that ultimate goal, right? Now you have Orlando City here with the pro
Yeah.
team, so that's probably a higher goal, but it's a more tangible goal with UCF. So if you have
100%.
10% of the kids that's going to make it to the college level and 1% going to go to pro, what do we do with those 10%, right?
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you look for? What is, like, if you say for you to play at UCF today, you have to have, besides the four values that you guys will probably
Yeah.
teach and improve it throughout the 4 or 5 years that they're going to be with you, but what are the things that you look for? Like, of course, soccer,
100%.
but the whole package.
Yeah, I think you are looking for, as a basic profile, you'd say, okay, you're looking for a person that competes at the right level, right? They're very engaged in the game. They are, in every moment, switched on, concentrated, focused, engaging in solving problems, right? Solution-oriented. You're looking for intensity. So the energy they bring to the game. I think it's interesting sometimes, and I don't love tournaments and how they're set up, but when you watch, let's say, the second game or third game in a tournament, and there's a guy, and he is still flying and still buzzing around and still competing, still demonstrates intensity, still engaging in the game. When things happen within a game, you concede. Right? What is the reaction of the player? Because that's going to give you a window into the psychology towards football, towards matches, right? Towards these difficult moments. So a resiliency, when he makes a mistake, how does he respond to the mistake, right? Does he just let the guy dribble by him? Does he track back? I think when you start to see how he interacts with his teammates. There was a very high-level player, and this was probably a mistake that I made when I was at Clemson as an assistant. I was recruiting. I watched this player warm up apart from his team, separate. His whole team was warming up in one area. He was in another area, doing entirely his own thing. And I thought, okay, I don't think that is going to be a good fit for our culture, right? I probably made a mistake because he played in the championship in England. But at the same time, at that time when I was thinking about, all right, what are the values that our team, what is our team value? That was outside those values. So we're looking for how you interact with your team. Are you a guy that is blaming? Or are you a guy that when someone else makes a mistake, you can impact them and help them to recover from that mistake? And then, of course, there's the level, the requisite level of the ability to do the things that we want you to do at UCF, with the ball, without the ball. There's different components to that, whether it's the physical components, the technical components, the decision-making. But as a starting point, if we see someone demonstrate those qualities within the game, we have a game playing DNA as well, right? Intensity is one of those things. Discipline is another one of those, and togetherness, right? So you have to be able to demonstrate those things at a good level. If you don't demonstrate any of those three things, it's very difficult for us to see you in our environment.
Mm-hmm. And what are the red flags, like, for recruiting? Like, when you're looking, what turns you off immediately? Like, I called you today and I say, Scott, Edgar is amazing. And then you come to watch him, and then it's like, boom, red flag, red flag, red flag. What are the things
Edgar gets distracted by referees, right? All of a sudden, a call goes against Edgar, and Edgar switches off. The game keeps going, right? Because the game keeps going. The game doesn't care whether you're happy about the call the referee makes or not. The game goes on. So you disengage, right? You disengage because you got fouled. Sorry, it didn't get called. Sorry, that's part of the game. You throw your hands up. Body language, negative body language. I think being a good teammate is running back for your team, right? You don't run back, you just run forward.
That was me.
There is one. I will say this though. I will say this, and I think every high-level coach would say. But I think actually, interestingly, the modern game's changed a little bit, and I would say maybe in the past, I would have said, "Oh wow, if you can guarantee me you're going to score a goal a game, we can adjust our expectations around your defensive abilities." Right? It's harder today because the pressing of modern systems requires everybody to work at a certain level with intensity, with discipline, with togetherness, right? You can't press without those three things, because if one guy doesn't do it, there's a way out, right? And then now everybody's got to run back 80 yards. That's one of the things and I'm not going to say our guys are perfect at UCF. Sometimes we do not demonstrate those things at a high enough level, and then we have to coach them, right? And that's the reality, because there are some very high-level players who aren't in a pro environment because maybe they're a little deficient on some of those. And then we have to try to help them to understand, like, no, we're all aligned in terms of what you want and what we want. You want to be a high-level professional player one day after UCF. You want to be successful here. You must demonstrate these three things, because every pro coach, when they come and watch you, they're going to want to see those three things. Like, my evaluation is probably not very different than any professional coach's evaluation, what they want in a player, right? But yeah. If you can guarantee me a goal a game,
Yeah, I can't anymore.
maybe we don't have you run back as much.
So the body language and stuff, and now it's something that is changing the game. And I know we talked about it before, you and I, at the waiting for the rain over in the last year in the Winter Park.
That's right.
How does the transfer portal now affect the game, NIL?
Yeah.
What differences are you seeing with those two things? Because I know it's a touchy subject. People don't understand it yet, but the players can just place themselves, like, they sit on the bench one day, they place themselves in the transfer portal, and next thing you know, it's like, what? Like, it was. How does that change your job? Those two things. NIL first, I think, because it's something that, and then the transfer portal.
Yeah, so NIL, actually, that's a great question, because we can dispel a lot of myths around NIL, right? So NIL is about to change. And NIL was name, image, and likeness is what it stands for. And there's a lawsuit, NCAA versus House, that's in the process of being settled. It's quite far along. And basically it's damages and the future of college sports. The damages are guys like a Trevor Lawrence, right, who played for Clemson, quarterback, blonde hair, long blonde hair. Like, Coca-Cola would have given him $1 million, right? There's big brands that would have said, we're going to give you big money. And he wasn't allowed to take any of it. And that's because of NCAA rules. Well, over time, what's happened is there's been enough of guys like that who never were able to profit from that, and the universities were, and this has now reached its way to court. And so that's the damages side. That's going to be billions of dollars, hundreds of millions. Now there's this new side, which is, as part of the settlement, you must share, can't remember how it's phrased, but you can share up to 20% of your athletic department budget, and or it's $20 million with athletes. So if you've got a $100 million athletic budget, $20 million a year can now be shared with athletes. And now, what does that mean? Well, if you say, how do you invest your money? How do all of us want to invest our money? We want a return on our investment. So the best return on investment is American football. 40+ thousand in our stadium, other stadiums, 100+ thousand, big sponsorship deals, big TV contracts. When you invest the vast majority of that money into American football, you get a return. Beyond that, you'd probably say men's basketball, to some degree now women's basketball. Women's basketball is with Caitlin, I can't remember. I think
the lady from LSU, right?
Yeah, Caitlin Clark.
I watched the episode, her episode on Amazon Prime. I think they
Yeah,
have a Very good.
Yeah, and it's blown up. Women's basketball has really, really benefited, and now women's basketball is a place where you can invest, right? Baseball's invested a little bit, but athletic departments and athletic directors they're smart people, and they go, okay, this is where if we invest, we can get some return. So what does that mean for college soccer? Bring it back to college soccer. It's very unlikely that a lot of this revenue share will end up in college soccer, right? So I think when you're looking at and trying to create expectations for parents who are watching this and they hear, oh, NIL, there's $20 million out there. If we packed 40,000 people into a stadium, you could expect a big NIL. So, we don't do that yet. So, maybe we can talk about getting lots of people in the community come out and pack the stadium. And then now, all right, what's the return on investment for men's soccer? So right now it's low, and that's across the country. So I think that's the NIL side. What you are going to see is, as part of this, there's a roster cap, which is grandfathered in now. So roster caps are 28 for men's soccer and women's soccer both. So that changes not much what we do, but a lot of private schools that have maybe had more people on the roster. So that's one of the components. So, but it also means that you can fund, men's soccer used to be 9.9 scholarships for 28, let's say. Women, I think, was 13 or 14. And now that can change. So we could potentially, if our athletic department decided, that you could fund all the way up to 28 full scholarships. So now some teams are going to invest in their soccer program. Some teams are going to divest. Some teams are going to have more scholarships. Some teams are going to have less. So there's this changing landscape.
So that could be an unfair advantage for big schools or private schools or whatever.
100%. If they have the money to invest in it and to fund it, all of a sudden you could have 28 scholarships, and another program could go from 9.9 to 6. Right?
Do you think, before you go, do you think with the next 2 years with the World Cup and the Club World Cup and the attention that U.S. is going to have in soccer, do you think it's a potential investment that the school is going to come to you and say, hey, Scott, you can have 25 scholarships, and you'll be like, yes, or not, or it has no correlation to.
No. I think there is a correlation. I think athletic departments, each athletic department is going to make their own decision based on their own criteria, right? I think they're going to say, all right, what do we think that this program can be successful? Because everyone wants to invest in those programs that they believe can be successful. So they'll evaluate that. They will evaluate the marketplace, right? So here, Orlando, I think we're hosting FIFA's World Cup this summer, right? We've got that coming. We've got the World Cup itself. It's a soccer town, right? You look at the amount of clubs, right? High-level clubs. We've got a professional Orlando City, top professional team. So you'd say, okay, this is an environment to invest in soccer, and we feel like we can be successful. So I think that's how ADs will make those decisions. They'll make it around that, and then the return is, all right, this team has it's a little bit more glory than money, right? So if we make a run to the final 16, like, I think they will look at that and be Final Four, win a national championship, win a Sun Belt championship, right? That's where they're going to say, okay, we invested well in our program. So I think that's how those decisions will be made in the Olympic sports side.
Interesting. And the transfer portal.
Yeah, okay.
You love those.
Yeah. So completely changed the landscape for sport, for college sport. And where there used to be significant barriers to movement, right? You had essentially a contract, and to break that contract, you used to have to get permission, right? So you'd have to go and you'd have to request, the coach would have to get with the athletic department and say, yes, we want to grant this transfer, or no, we're not going to allow it. And each athletic department did that differently. Now, as long as you request your transfer in the windows that are available to you, you absolutely can go, right? So retention of student athletes, you're constantly recruiting. So if you said, and we do this naturally, and I think our values align with the continued recruitment in a way of the athletes within our program, is they know they're cared for. We commit, not just them, right? We're supporting them in the right way. And that means typically that if they feel valued, at least in the men's soccer world and the women's soccer world, it's different. Now, we generally retain our guys. What I think you'll see, though, is in the basketball world and the football world, what you're seeing is there's a financial element to it. So now you're a really high-level player, and you're making a certain amount of money at a UCF or at a Florida or at any school. And now you become aware, though you're not supposed to, right? So you've become aware that there's maybe a better situation for you somewhere else. That's when I think you're seeing some transfer portal movement. I think it's a little bit more difficult for the basketballs of the world and the football teams of the world to have consistency within their teams. We want to have consistency within our team because we feel like we're developing a team over time. They have a different job. It's a harder job, and they've got to re-recruit their own players, and then they're going to lose some, and then they've got to re-recruit, or they've got to go out into the transfer portal. And I think what you see in the men's soccer world is there are less freshmen being recruited. So how that impacts, I think, your listeners is you see less freshmen going to the bigger schools, and you're seeing a whole nother player pool that we now go to look at, and it's guys who have done it at a high level already in college and have maybe, there aren't a ton of those guys out there, right? Because they've already been to some degree pre-filtered, right? Okay, this is a all-region player, a all-conference player, the player of the year, midfield player of the year, an all-American, and then now bigger programs are looking at those guys rather than, I was at some of those like Clemson and UNC. Those guys, and that was 2001. I was at UNC, and I want to say up until 2006 at Clemson. Those were all young guys, 18-year-olds, 4-year players. You'd bring them in, and then they would develop within your program. And so that's changed. So if you look at the Sun Belt Conference, there's a lot of older players in that conference, the conference we play in.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm learning because we always talked about, as a dad and as a club owner, it's like I have good players that will become a senior in high school this year. NONA is a state champion here in high school, and then all of these players are playing for NONA or FKK or so ECNL, some MLS Next, Tier 2 this year. So we have those players coming up. It's like, I want to play at UCF. It'll be tough to play UCF. And then we try to explain to the parents, saying, so this is good information that is coming from you. So you think that is 100% related to the transfer portal, because now you can go in there and you see juniors available on the market, and that's proven in different markets. Interesting. That's
100%. And when you think about the best years of, typically, right, the best years of players' playing career, as far as college goes, junior, senior year. After they've adapted, the game's physical, the game's different, right? The level's higher, it's faster, decisions have to be made faster, the physicality of the league. And then now you get a junior who's done it. They're proven. There's always a big adaptation period. We actually have success when players take gap years as well. So when you look at our roster, it is a balance between domestic players and international players. But overall, most of those players have had a gap year for us. And I'm not suggesting that that's what everyone should do. They've had a gap year, and then they've started to play. And depending on the environment, right, some of our guys come out of European pro clubs and their youth environments, and sometimes even their second teams. And then they're coming over. So imagine now you're not 18, you're not 19, you're 21. And my 21-year-old self versus my 18-year-old self, I always think about it that way. After I'd played a couple of years of college soccer, it's
Yeah,
It's
I
insane.
was having a conversation with my son. He's 16 and he's getting the opportunity. He had great practices this week, the first 2 weeks of USL
Yeah.
two, but Coach Bruno didn't put him on the list for the first game. Hey, it is what it is. Keep working, keep going. You're 16, you know,
Yep.
you're like the baby of the whole squad. But then at the same time, I told him, I was like, man, we have two players that is also from the academy, but they started in the first game,
Yeah.
and it's like, but Dad, they're 20, 21.
That's it.
I was like, so those 21, the 21-year-old that's coming up from our academy, he played U17 with us all the way through USL Academy and all of that, UPSL and all the men's league. So that's the gap year that they took, right?
That's right.
So they went to Andres went to Knoxville to
Okay.
he was on the roster for USL one team.
Yep. The Knox one team.
Yeah.
Nice.
So now he comes back and he was the best player on the field, but he's a 21-year-old that's been around, right?
Exactly.
He's been putting a lot of mileage on his engine, and then as I'm talking to Mo, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that way. So most probably Andre as a 21-year-old and Ansel as a 21-year-old, they're probably one of the oldest in the group that we have today.
Yeah.
But there are an academy player coming back to play. Still part of my vision.
100%.
But you can't compare to the 16-year-olds getting exposed to that. So I think that kind of fits
100%.
exactly what you're saying, how
Yeah.
the college world and the big schools are going
Yeah.
at.
And I think one of the most difficult developmental periods because like you can actually see youth teams from the U.S. go and play around the world, and the results against even top teams, it's very even.
Mm-hmm.
But then something happens in that 17 to 22-year-old range in some of these other environments in Europe, in particular, that is where their development, and I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but where those players really mature. And I do think a lot of it has to do with playing with men. And when you start to play men's football and you start to play first team football, it is different than developmental football and youth football. And you learn how to win games. And I think you need to develop to a certain age. I just spent a week in Barcelona within Barcelona's environment. And it's really interesting to watch their youth teams train. I got a week of it. And then you see their Barca B team, and then you see their A team. And obviously anybody that's watched their A team play knows that there's this whole group of players that came up and went through La Masia, who are from that area, most of them. And now they're playing first team football at the highest level, just won La Liga.
Mm-hmm. There's a study in Brazil, Scott, that I don't know if you've heard of it, and I don't remember who wrote it, but there's a study in Brazil talking about American athletes and how come U.S. produces the best athlete in every single sport. And then when you said that our youth teams, they compete, it's probably not because of the soccer level of it. It's the athleticism that comes with it.
Yep.
So you have kids today, the youth sports all around. Let's not even talking about soccer, but in basketball, you have little kids playing basketball at 7 years old in an environment of competition, in an environment of training. You go to the Lake Nona Performance Club, which is one of the best gyms that I have ever seen in the world.
Yeah.
You go there between 3 and 6. It's all kids working out with proper form. So the exposure that the American athletes have towards that, you see, is schools, college.
Yeah.
There's not a college in Brazil with the athletics program that you have at UCF. You know, so by that time that they make it to that top of the pyramid, the filter has already done. So those are the talented players.
That's right.
And they become athletes as well, but in a later scale.
100%.
So that's when back down here we are competing as Americans.
Exactly.
But on top of
football
it,
knowledge.
But then when everybody catches up,
Yeah.
then we fall behind because we don't have that. I think it's better though, because now you have my son. He's a Brazilian family. He's spending time in Brazil, and he's growing up in the U.S. soccer. So he's bringing a little taste of Brazil into the locker room. And then you have the Africans that are coming in, and then you have the Latinos, and you have the European all coming in. My locker room at USL too, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's the top level. Like you look at practice and everything, it's at top level. But the athleticism and the professionalism of the American athletes.
Yeah, agreed.
So, and that study at the end shows, like, look at the athletes, like LeBron James, he's 40 playing at the highest level.
It's unbelievable.
Tiger Woods, Serena Williams.
Yeah.
They all played, the longevity of their career is insane.
Yeah.
And in Brazil, you have amazing players dropping at 32.
Yeah. Yeah.
33. And I think that's the biggest difference. You have they're genius. They're like the magical of the game is there. But the professionalism of, you said that the player is the center. How did you use the player is the center of their own development?
Center, right? And then we build an environment around the player.
And the player needs to understand that too.
Oh, yeah. The player needs to understand they're the center, and then all development happens at an individual level, right? So even team development really comes down to, okay, your better understanding of your ability to interact within the team.
And the resilience competition that we have here in America.
Yes.
That you don't start in Europe into, like here, the parents wants to see that trophy. It's like that medal. So that I believe it's an amazing part of the development. Yeah. Because if you put that pride into the Brazilian national team and the younger ages, because they don't care. Yeah. Nowadays, like you look at there's a big corruption thing going on in Brazil and with the soccer and the confederation, and it's a mess. But the kids nowadays, they don't dream to play for Corinthians, Flamengo anymore.
Oh, they want to go play Barca and Real.
They dream to play for Barca.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you want to play for the national team or for Barca? Barca. Yeah. That kid needs to. But that's the new world that we live in. So that's something that it's interesting but I think going back to your point, the athleticism and the professionalism of the young athletes here in the U.S. with all the exposure, it's top notch.
I agree.
Top notch. You go to these tournaments, ECNL, MLS Next Fest. I was at IMG a couple maybe a month ago for the Adidas generation. Oh my God! Like if you had that in Brazil, like
then you marry the two perfect environments, right? Because you've got the development of football in Brazil, right, and football IQ and knowledge and however they do that in Brazil. I've not been to Brazil and seen the youth programs there, but I can speak a little to the Barca system. The development of football knowledge, I got to sit down for a week with the methodologists and ask questions, and you go, okay, you marry those two things together. Well, and Barca has, because it's the best development environment in the world, probably. That's the magic right there, if you can do it both.
And that's why they go to Brazil and buy it. I was in Real Madrid one time, and it was like I spoke to the academy director. It's unbelievable. Completely different style than Barca, and you can like one or the other, whatever. That's what I'm talking about. But I was in Real Madrid, and they said we can create hundreds of Sergio Ramos, but then we need to go and buy Ronaldo. Mm-hmm. We need to go and buy Vini. Yeah, we need to go in, because we won't be like inside that environment. Yep, you're not gonna develop a Messi. Yep. So, but that's okay.
Yeah. Oh no. 100%.
You will build an amazing team, and then you bring the cherry on top.
Exactly. Add 1-2 players that you can't. Your environment isn't conducive to creating.
Yeah, I heard that at Real Madrid, and I thought it was pretty
Yeah.
interesting that
That's
they're
right.
saying, like, how many players do you see coming up from the Real Madrid academy or playing in different teams, not at Real Madrid?
Yeah,
Because
it's quite a few.
at the academy at Real Madrid, the focus, it's not to develop players for Real Madrid.
It was to sell.
It's different than Barca, that the Barcelona La Masia develops players for Barca.
Yeah, they
And-
make the jump to the first.
And you don't see a lot of Barca La Masia playing for other clubs because they become that environment.
That's right.
So Real Madrid, they develop the team, the players, they sell, they lend it, they whatever, and then they buy the best for the top team.
100%.
So
Yeah,
it's
that was something that I found very interesting in being in Spain was
Yeah,
the financial model around it.
yeah, and that's one thing that I think is going to change the U.S. market as well.
I think so.
Once we start selling players,
Yeah.
because people say, "Oh, U.S. is never going to sell." It's like, guys, we have 220 million people in Brazil. Yes, it's the number one sport. Yes, but there's 350 million here.
Oh yeah.
Like, as long as we start doing the right things, and
it.
stuff like this continues to happen, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I came here 25 years ago, and there is now one player playing in Europe. Now the entire U.S. national team is playing in Europe.
100%. 100%.
So we're evolving, not as fast as some people
Yeah.
would like to see, because we expect to be at that level, and we think nobody evolves. Like in Brazil, it's like, oh, we're not the best team in the world anymore. Of course not. Or you thought you were going to be there forever and nobody would come. That's not going to happen. So those are interesting. So going towards the end of our conversation here, Scott, and once again, thank you for your time. But USL 2, that environment, and then having this year we have, I think, 3 or 4 players that either playing with you or have played with you or transferring out. So we're excited to have that relationship. I think Bruno has done a good job, and since Dave last year, we kind of opened that door. How do you see USL 2? How important it is for the players to come in after playing the summer season? Because you're talking about playing with men, being exposed to the next level. I think USL 2 does a good job with that. How do you feel about players playing in the summer leagues?
Yeah, I think the summer leagues can be really, really productive. And I think when you say, and it varies by player, right? When there's a player and they're young and they need more games, and maybe even they're not getting selected on a regular basis at UCF, absolutely. Like, go and play every game, right? And get as much experience as possible. And then you've got guys that are selected all the time. Yeah, you can go play in that environment. Maybe don't play every game. You know what I'm saying? Just in terms of the periodization of it. But I think, to your point, you're going to play with men. You're going to play in games that are meaningful. You're going to get good training, right? You're going to spend more time learning the game. You're going to spend more time on the ball. And now, if you take that and you say, all right, now we're going to roll into our season, I think the gap that exists with college soccer, which is, okay, we're done, us in particular, we're done in May, right? So May 1st. And now there's this gap, all of May, all of June. We're a little different because we start up a little bit earlier. That's too much time off. And so I think that's where every player can find the right sort of, I've got a bit of the sports science background always when I think about how to load players. But I think those guys now, they get key minutes, experience at a high level. It's very much like college, because when you take a look at all the players that are in that environment, they're all college players. And then you can get a lot out of that. And now it bridges that gap, because that is one of the most difficult parts of college soccer that actually we're trying to fix, which is our season. Very heavy front-loaded fall season with games, September, and if we're really good, maybe we get to December, but otherwise it's November, and then not enough games in the spring. And now we're talking 7 games over the same period that you had about 18 to 20. So that doesn't work, and then a big gap. So I think it can fill this need where, okay, you can play more games, get more experience. I think it can be a real positive.
Yeah, and here I think in our program, one of the things that I wanted to do is to have that good relationship with the schools and provide a good environment, because I remember when I first started, and I spoke to a couple college players like, man, I'm never going to send you players. Like, you guys beat the crap out of them.
Yep.
And then they come in August for preseason, they're beat up.
Yep.
I was like, okay, how can we do a better program here? So the partnerships that we have with, I was talking to some of the players that they arrived, it's like, and here we are in Lake Nona again. We love.
That's right.
We love being here, and then when we talk about,
you got a lot of guys coming from the cold.
Yeah, well, you have that, and then you have a cool community to be around. They go into, so our apartments are cool. So all of that part, all of the new. The smell, the fresh smell of paint, it's there. Okay, so we're ahead of that. But then you have the Lake Nona Performance Club. Then I have a physio guy full-time on staff. Then I have a fitness coach. Then I have working on periodization. And so I think that's why the guys like being here. We're playing in a stadium with a beautiful field and with the vibe. I saw the kids asking for autographs at the end of the game. So that we created an environment that they like to be in. We're not going to send the players beat up back to the school. So I think that was part of that connection that today we're considered probably one of the best programs in the country. And I'm not talking about the results on the field. It's the whole package where the players, like recruiting players for our program is relatively simple to do that. So it's cool. So with that said, I wanted to give you, it's got a couple VIP season tickets, and you can give it to your staff. This is new. It's a new thing that we're doing. So we printed some tickets, and you have all the games here. So with this, you can come to every game. So if you want to bring your boys, the kids don't pay to get in. So, but you're always welcome. And if you forget the tickets, just call one of us. You know who you are, or come with that shirt.
Jump the fence.
Yeah, we'll hook you up with access.
Awesome.
But thank you so much, Scott. I think we can be here and talk for another 3 days
no doubt.
of this type of stuff, and I would like to have you here at least once a year so we can start talking more. Now people know who you are. Invite you to come to our practices and games, 100%. And I think Nona Cup will be huge. We're gonna do this year coaches panel where we're going to start sharing information. I think that raises the level of our tournament as well. And I think we want to be part of it. It was good for me being a UCF alum, reconnecting with you guys and having that. Last year we had one of our assistant coaches where Vincent was with you guys too. So we want more of that. The doors are always open. If you anytime need anything, feel free to reach out, and then I hope to see you more around. So
I will be.
All right. Yeah. So thank you, Edgar, once again. Thank
Edgar,
you, Nona Studio, for having us here. And wow, this is amazing. I got to speak to Mr. Calabrese.
And we've been trying to do this for like a year.
Yes, and this is exciting for us, and hopefully we can start sending some Nona kids over his way. If not, in the short term here, in the long term, I think we'll have enough players to send your way. Once again, thank you here from the NONA Sports Cast. I appreciate your audience, and thank you, Edgar, and I'll see you around. Thank you.